Karen Huger took a sharp turn recently as she was sentenced to 2 years in prison, with 1 year of that sentence suspended. The news broke earlier today, and it immediately sent shockwaves through the reality TV community. Karen Huger, better known as the Grand Dame of Potomac, is no stranger to drama, but this time it's not just about the gossip and intrigue we're used to seeing on Real Housewives of Potomac. This time Karen's legal troubles have reached a level that no one could have predicted. Karen Huger's DUI conviction has been a long time coming. As many of you know, DUI charges are serious, and when you rack up multiple offenses, the consequences can be even more severe. The prosecutors who won the conviction against Karen recommended a 6-month prison sentence. However, the judge had a different plan. After reviewing the police body camera footage, he made it clear that Karen's actions would not go unpunished. He sentenced Karen to 2 years in prison, with 1 year suspended. Karen had been a fixture in the world of reality television for years, but this latest twist in her life story is something that no one saw coming. The legal drama surrounding her DUI conviction is just the beginning of what could be a turning point in her life. The public reaction to her sentencing has been mixed, but one thing is for sure. This is a serious issue that has caught the attention of fans, cast members, and even the media. The court hearing was closed, but there were authorized reporters in attendance who were able to relay the events to the public. Karen, who is 61 years old, was in the courtroom with her husband, Ray Huger, who is 77 years old. It was reported that Karen wore a blonde wig with black roots, but the reality of the situation was far from glamorous. As soon as she entered the courtroom, the gravity of the moment set in. This wasn't just another scene from a reality show. It was real life, and Karen was facing the consequences of her actions. Ray Huger, Karen's longtime husband, was present to support his wife during this difficult time. For those of you who follow the show, you know that Ray has always been a steady presence in Karen's life, even when things got complicated behind the scenes. Ray spoke in Karen's defense, telling the court that the real victims in all of this were their children, who had been hurt the most by Karen's actions. He also mentioned that Karen had taken steps to recover from the incident, which included going to treatment centers and working on her recovery. Karen's lawyer stood up to argue on her behalf, attempting to present reasons why Karen should be given a more lenient sentence. The lawyer argued that Karen had already taken steps to self-regulate her behavior, claiming that she went to treatment centers that were similar to jail. These were not your average treatment centers. Some of them were designed to resemble jail cells to give patients a sense of what it might be like to serve time behind bars. In the defense's eyes, Karen had already punished herself enough, and the judge should take that into consideration. The defense also argued that Karen had made progress in her recovery by participating in a program where she would have to blow into a device 4 times a day to monitor her alcohol consumption. Additionally, Karen had continued her relationship with a therapist, and her lawyer insisted that she was doing everything necessary to stay on track and avoid future legal trouble. They hoped that these efforts would be enough to convince the judge to either reduce her sentence or allow her to serve time at home with an ankle bracelet. While Karen's lawyer was making the case for leniency, the prosecution was not impressed. According to sources in the courtroom, the prosecutors were shaking their heads and making faces as they listened to the defense's arguments. They weren't buying the claims that Karen had done enough to redeem herself. In fact, the prosecution pointed out that Karen had been given multiple chances in the past to correct her behavior, but she had continued to make the same mistakes. The prosecution argued that Karen had repeatedly failed to take responsibility for her actions and that she needed to face the full consequences of her behavior. One of the most striking moments in the courtroom came when Karen took the stand to speak for herself. She expressed regret for bringing the case to trial and apologized for her actions. She admitted that she had been arrogant in thinking that she could handle alcohol, and while some may see this as a sincere admission of guilt, others might question whether it was just a clever way to downplay the situation. Either way, it was clear that Karen was attempting to make amends, but whether or not the court believed her would soon become evident. After hearing from both the defense and the prosecution, the judge took the floor. According to reports from those who were in The courtroom, the judge did not hold back in delivering his verdict. He made it clear that he was not impressed by Karen's attempts to downplay her behavior. The judge pointed out that Karen had been working the system for years and that all of the warnings she had received over the years had gone ignored. He cited her previous DUI tickets, including one from 2007 and another in 2008, and said that it was clear Karen had failed to learn from her past mistakes. The judge also made it clear that Karen's behavior was not acceptable, regardless of her status in the public eye. He refused to buy into any attempts at leniency, telling Karen that her arrogance would not fly in his court. His decision was final, and he sentenced Karen to 2 years in prison, with 1 year of that sentence suspended. This meant that while Karen would serve time in prison, she would only have to serve 1 year behind bars, with the remainder of her sentence potentially being served in another form, like probation or house arrest. When the sentence was handed down, Karen was visibly shaken. She screamed out to her husband Ray, telling him that she loved him and that God's got you. She also reassured him that everything would be all right. However, it was clear that Karen was overwhelmed by the gravity of the situation. This was a huge blow for her, and while some might argue that she saw it coming, it's still a difficult reality to face. Karen's lawyers had done their best to secure a lighter sentence, but the judge made it clear that this was not a game. Karen had been given multiple chances to change her behavior, and she had failed to do so. The judge was not willing to let her off easy this time, and he let her know that in no uncertain terms. Ray Huger, despite his age and health challenges, has always been a pillar of support for Karen. He stood by her in the courtroom, speaking on her behalf and trying to paint a picture of the woman he knows behind closed doors. Ray spoke of how hard Karen had worked to recover from her past mistakes, and how much her family was hurting as a result of the legal troubles. However, despite his heartfelt plea, the judge was not Sway's situation has put a tremendous strain on their family, especially on their children, who have already been through so much. Karen has worked hard to maintain the image of the Grande Dame of Potomac, but this legal issue has been a major setback. Her reputation has taken a hit, and her personal life is now under a microscope more than ever.